to tell me that. All right, we've got the recording in progress. That is wonderful. So we will go ahead and get started. Everyone, welcome to this introduction to Makey Makey webinar. This is we're doing this specific thing right now because it's the start of the school year. So it's a good time to refresh teachers who have used it before. And maybe it's been a while, but also if you're new to it or if you're looking for new things to do in the classroom, this is a great 101 sort of primer to get you up to speed on Makey Makey and figure out the best uses for it in your classroom. A lot of you had said you'd used it before, so some of this stuff will be a refresher for you. I'll kind of move through that stuff quickly. And then we can hopefully, if you have questions or ideas or comments, we can spend more time on the more advanced stuff for the ones who've done it before. But we'll look at a lot of like really basic intro stuff too. There's always stuff. Almost every person I talk to about Makey Makey, unless they use it like every year all the time and they've figured out every little thing, there's always something new to show people, so that's good. But this is going to be a really good primer covering all of our bases. And we can, if you have questions, my favorite thing is people saying like, well, can we do this specific thing? So definitely drop all of those in the chat. What we will do is if you ask questions in the chat, we will kind of take breaks intermittently through this, and Simone will keep track of those, and we'll answer those as we go in these little breaks. Simone, if there's a question that is like really directly, specifically related to something I'm saying at that exact moment, feel free to interrupt me and ask those at your discretion or not. It's fine to wait as well. With all of that said, we will kick things off. I believe, yep, the first slide here is the introduction. Hello, my name is Eli. I am a sales lead slash product ambassador enthusiast. I do a lot of our trainings with teachers. My favorite thing in the world is to get to go into a classroom and work hands-on with educators and students who are using Makey Makey. I started just a little bit of background. I started in education when I moved to Austin, so like 2012 or 2013. Before that, I'd been teaching art classes, but Austin is such a STEM city, and I'm such a STEM nerd that when I got here, I was really excited to get to do that stuff. And so I started using the Makey Makey, like the very first ones right after the Kickstarter, with a group of third graders here in Austin in a literature class of all things. It wasn't a STEM class or a coding class. Their English teacher was also really geeky and nerdy. And I was working with a program where we get to go into schools and help them introduce new tech, new STEM stuff into the classroom. And that was when I first started using it. After that, I ran summer camps and after school programs, and I ran a makerspace for a while. And in every one of those, I used Makey Makey. So I've been using the product since it came out, and was super excited a few years ago when I got the opportunity to come and do all that exact same stuff that I'd been doing, but officially with Makey Makey. Love talking about it. Super excited to do that with you. Here with us is Simone. Simone is our head of marketing. She's going to be, like I said, managing the chat, keeping me on track and making sure that everything is working properly here. Thank you for that, Simone. Feel free to unmute and say hello if you'd like.
Hey everyone, super excited to be here and super excited to support you. Let us know again if you have any questions in the chat. I'll be monitoring that and we'll make sure they get to Eli throughout the presentation today.
Thank you for doing that. I didn't tell you I was going to do that, so surprise. Yeah, so that's us. We are really happy to be doing this. We love doing this, so thank you for being here. Other sort of like housekeeping at the top of this, there's a promo code exclusively being released to you, this audience at this webinar. Some of you said that you have Makey Makey, but they're like years old. There are a lot of new things depending on how old you're making. All Makey Makey look just like this. And so it's possible that you have some that you've had your school has had for like 10 years. There is some new stuff that newer Makey Makey can do that older ones can't. They can all do the basic stuff that we probably know and love. But there are some new features that we'll talk about that are kind of exclusive to newer versions. And we have update processes. But if maybe you want to do that, or if you've got a class, if you've just got like one or two and you want to get classroom set, this promo code is for, I forgot to put it on there, but I believe it's 15% off of the standard one Makey Makey classic kit or the classroom set that has 12 Makey Makey in it. So this is available to you. The code is get started, and I'll have that up again at the end. Um, and with all of that said, let's really quickly go through, for anyone who's never done this before, what is a Makey Makey? So you saw me holding mine up. This is the Makey Makey board itself. When we talk about Makey Makey, this is the thing that we're talking about. Uh, and these two pictures are my favorite way to explain it in the whole world. They tell you everything you need to know. I always forget to reverse them. The animated one should be the first one because the Makey Makey, you plug it in, and whenever you push those little buttons, it just does keyboard actions, right? So you can see when we press left, the left arrow on the screen is flashing. When we press the little space key, which looks like the B button on a Nintendo, the space key is flashing on the screen. That's the essence of Makey Makey, is it replaces your keyboard and allows you to press the keyboard by activating the Makey Makey. That on its own, not super interesting. Replacing your keyboard with another keyboard, fine. What makes Makey Makey awesome is that first picture on the left there, the fact that we can hook up other stuff to the Makey Makey, and now that becomes the replacement for your keyboard. So there you can see we've got 4 bananas, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 bananas representing up, down, left, right, space, click. I wonder what I've not checked what all of these are. Up, down, left, right, space, click, and who knows? The new piano app, that's a picture of our old one. The new one, you can actually add more keys. So it could be that they just put the wrong app on there. But yeah, you can replace the key presses with other stuff. Obviously, we are most famous for a banana piano. The banana is in our logo now because of that. That was from, I think, the original Kickstarter. But you can do pretty much anything that's conductive can become a button, and that opens up a lot of really exciting doors, especially for use in a classroom when you're wanting kids to get hands-on and do some like physical problem solving to integrate, physical stuff into their computing or their storytelling or anything that they're doing. Makey Makey makes it really easy just by hooking up other stuff. The way that that works is the computer, when you plug the Makey Makey in, it just thinks that you've plugged in a keyboard and mouse peripheral. It doesn't know the difference. Sometimes I'll plug it into a computer that it's never been plugged into before, a Mac specifically, and it'll be like, hey, I noticed you've plugged in a new keyboard. Go ahead and hit the left shift, hit the key next to the left shift, which is like the Z. And it's like that way I know what kind of keyboard you're using, and I just have to cancel out of it and close it because I'm like, no, it's not actually a keyboard. There's not a left shift key. There's not a Z key. Uh, Kindly disregard and we'll all move on. It'll be fine. But that's what it does, is it replaces the keyboard on your computer, and now you can use other things as buttons. Let's talk about like how that works. So every key on your keyboard is actually a switch. Think of like a light switch. The only difference between a light switch and the keys on your keyboard is that when I flip a light switch, it stays on or off. Whereas when I press a key on my keyboard, it's only pressed while I'm actively engaging it. That's called a momentary switch. Any spring-loaded switch that is like only on while you're pressing it is just a momentary switch. And every key on your keyboard is that exact thing. They're spring-loaded switches. Imagine if you put a spring on your light switch so that every time you turn the light off, it turned itself back on. It'd be very annoying, but it'd be the same as a computer keyboard. And so that's what the keys on your keyboard are doing. This is kind of an example of what's happening when you press that switch. So you have electricity that is trying to get from a source to, in this case, a light bulb, but it's trying to do some sort of work and then go back to the source and create a closed circuit. And that switch, I always tell kids, it acts like a moat or a drawbridge. And when the drawbridge is up, the electricity can't pass. And when the drawbridge is down, the electricity is able to move through and close that circuit. So whenever you flip a light switch, you are allowing the electricity to pass through that circuit. Or when you flip it, I keep saying when you flip a light switch and I'm motioning down, but I should be motioning up. Whenever you turn it on, the electricity moves through. Whenever you turn it off, the electricity cannot because that drawbridge is up. So that's how a switch works. And the Makey Makey allows us to build our own switches. So for anyone in here who's never worked with a Makey Makey before, the way that this works is you hook up clips to the earth or ground plane, and then each of these buttons is going to close a different circuit. So if I'm holding onto that earth or ground plane and I press up, the Makey Makey is using me as a wire. I'm conductive, and so the electricity is able to flow through me. It's actually flowing through like the moisture on the surface of your skin, which is relevant depending on where you live. But when I do that, I am closing the circuit. And what we can see in the picture here on the screen we can see that the left al or the yellow alligator clip is connected to the space key, and then it's connected to one end of that little switch that we've built. That switch is just a brass fastener, two brass fasteners, and a paper clip. And so that paper clip is acting like the drawbridge. It's like a spring-loaded drawbridge, and the electricity can't jump through it to the other side and make it back to that ground plane until that paper clip is pressed down. So we can physically build just out of like office supplies and recyclable material an example of that switch that we saw, uh, and use that to replace our keyboard keys to activate actions on our computer. This demo that we're looking at right here on the screen is a really fun, easy, quick way to get kids to understand that concept. I've showed classrooms this animated GIF before, and they've not needed any other instructions, and that has been their first Makey Makey project, and they've been fine. And after that, they're kind of off to the races. Um, this is not the most exciting version of that, but it's a really, really functional demo of how the Makey Makey works. And then from there, you find more interesting ways to close those circuits. You say, well, if I can press down on a paper clip to do that, what other actions can I do that will close or open that circuit? And you can make those as big or as small as you have the materials for. And that's kind of where the fun and the magic happens. Types of connections that you can do with a Makey Makey, you can do skin to skin. So, for example, if I was touching one point on the Makey Makey and someone else was touching the other, and then we high-fived, that would close the circuit. That is incredibly popular as a first demo. I was at a friend's house this weekend, and he has a 3-year-old, and like you hand them one of these alligator clips and then tap them on the nose, and it makes a beeping sound, and they go nuts. That is a very, very popular way to show off this product, and it feels like magic the first time you see it. Skin to object. So, if I am holding one of these wires and then I touch the other wire, my skin to an object, that's bridging the connection. Anytime you see the banana piano where someone is playing the piano by touching, that's skin to object. Tool to object, I can hook up a wrench or a screwdriver or a spoon and use those and touch those to a banana or a sheet of aluminum foil or anything like that, and that's going to be, as long as it's conductive. You can bridge the connection with different types of materials. So you can have, again, two contacts. I could have like two pieces of aluminum foil right next to each other, and whenever I lay my hand across them, that would work. So I don't have to pick those two things up and touch them together. I can just tap them. I actually have an example of that we'll look at in a minute. And then switches and simple mechanisms like the one that we saw uh, right here, right? So this is just a mechanical way of activating the Makey Makey. And through these different methods, you have a nearly infinite range of things that you can build. We don't even list everything here. Water is conductive. In our Kickstarter video, you can see the creators playing DDR by stomping in full buckets of water and splashing it around everywhere. And getting to use water to press a button on a computer, for example, is a really weird and exciting thing for kids too. That like kind of breaks the way that you think about using electronics. But it's really, really exciting. So there are all sorts of ways beyond even these, but they open up such a huge range of possibilities for what you can do. So with that in mind, that's what the Makey Makey is. But let's talk about what the Makey Makey does in your classroom. A lot of you said you'd used it before, so let's talk about ways that you can use it in the classroom. The nice thing about Makey Makey when you're starting out in the classroom, especially, is the ease of use of that first time setup. When I'm using a Makey Makey for the very first time, and I'll actually do a lot of demos in schools where I don't even test it beforehand. I just assume that it's going to work because I've never actually run into a computer that doesn't work with Makey Makey. All you do is connect the Makey Makey to its wire, and then plug that wire into the computer. I have our USB-C type cable here, but the Makey Makey comes with a USB-A type cable. Let me see if I have that. Yeah, there we go. All my cables are tangled up. Right, so you plug the proper cable into your computer, whichever one you need. And whenever I plug that in, it's just going to work with the computer as a keyboard. Like I said, sometimes your computer will say, hey, what kind of keyboard do you have? But you can ignore that. And your Makey Makey will light up. And from then on, oh my gosh, this is the problem of doing presentations is you always accidentally click the buttons and skip through your slides. From then on, it's just ready to go. Like you saw that I plugged it in and accidentally pressed it and it was good to go. The ease of use and the simplicity of getting started is one of the really wonderful things about using this in a classroom. There's stuff to figure out when you have goals, when you say, I want to build, a video game controller, I want to build a booby trap, I want to build a musical instrument. There are concepts that you have to fully understand, but in terms of getting the device ready to go, it's as simple as what you see on the screen here. So that is one thing that I want to impress upon you very early on if you've never gotten hands on with a Makey Makey before. And then beyond that, what do you do with the Makey Makey once you've got it set up? We have a ton of resources on our website for doing that. And what I would encourage you to do, especially if you've not used Makey Makey in a long time, is to check those out. And there are two sections of our website that are really, really valuable. One of them is our resources page, and one of them is our apps. And I'm actually going to close out of my presentation for a moment so that we can just look at those right now. So if I open the Makey Makey website, are we all still seeing the website? I can't see if we are. Simone, can you unmute and confirm for me that we're good?
We are all good. We can see
Perfect.
it.
Uh, All right. So if I go to the resources section on our website, we have a list of activities here, different types of activities depending on what you're doing. But if you've not looked at it before, or if you're just kind of exploring and trying to think of things, clicking on resources and then going to all activities is going to list every one of our published lessons. And in terms of what to do in a classroom, you can come up with stuff that we've not even thought of before. And I love it when people do that. But as a getting started, this is an excellent, excellent place to go. And one of the things about this that sometimes goes unnoticed is that you can also filter this by our recommendations for grade levels. So some of you are elementary school teachers, some of you are middle school teachers. A lot of the projects on here are anyone can do them. And we tend to list those as like pre-K through, second, third grade. The ones that require more advanced coding skills, more manual dexterity, different types of tool use, we list those as being for older kids, especially also if the subject matter that we're covering in those is more advanced. Obviously, we're not going to build a tool for learning multiplication and recommend that you use it with your pre-K kids. But this filter is really, really useful if you want to look at things just for certain ages. But all that's going to do is pull from this exact same list. So you could also just look at absolutely everything. Uh, some of you, if you've used the apps before, the ones that you're probably most familiar with are the Bongo and the Is It Conductive app. Um, we have full lessons on how to use both of those, but now what I want to do is I'm going to open up the apps page and look at them specifically. So come back and look at this whenever you get a chance. But right now, let's look at the apps because each of those lessons is tied to an app. I'm going to go plug and play apps. Uh, and just like those first few lessons, the bongos, the is it conductive, the ones at the top are the most basic and best sort of getting started resources. Similarly, the apps at the top tend to be the most simple and easy to use getting started in a classroom. So let's say you were doing Makey Makey in a classroom for the first time. You want to do a crash course with your kids before you led them onto whatever the big project that they're going to do might be. Four easiest in my mind are the bongos, the piano, the Is It Conductive app, and the alarm. And we can look at each of these really quickly. The bongos app is the one that we saw in that slide when I was first introducing what the Makey Makey was. Why are my bongos taking so long to load? What's going on, bongos? Let's refresh those. Oh no, why aren't my bongos loading? I've been having funny internet problems all day. Of course, now they're not funny. Well, I guess I'm going to skip the bongos for now. You saw the bongos app. It's literally a two-button app where you ground yourself and then either press the left arrow key or the space key. And depending on which one you press, it makes a different noise on the bongos. This is super, super fun, especially for really young kids. They get to make noise in class and it's really easy. There's no like friction to it. So this is a really, really fun one to start with. But for some reason, it's not loading for me. I'm not sure. It's probably my internet issues. So we'll go to the next one. Um, Maybe the most robust of the starter apps is the piano app. Let's see if it's going to load for me. There we go. The piano app is basically the exact same thing as the bongos app, except with more options. So whenever I press up, down, left, or right, it's going to play a note along with space. My space key seems to be not loading either. I'm not sure why. Yeah, space and click. And then on top of that, you can actually expand into other notes as well. So I could actually add all sorts of additional notes to build a full-scale piano using the ports on the back of the Makey Makey. So on the back of the Makey Makey, we have W, A, S, D, F, and G. We also have up, down, left, right, or we also have scroll wheel up, scroll wheel down, scroll left, scroll right, left click, and right click. And so you can add additional buttons to make a full-scale piano to use. You can change the sound of this. I actually had a classroom of third graders that I was working with where they each just went through, this was in their makerspace, and they each went through and picked a different sound, different instrument type, and then they tried to build that. So we had some kids built drums, some kids built guitars. One kid tried to build a tuba out of cardboard, which was very ambitious, and I loved that spirit. And they were happy with it in the end, so that's great. But this is a really, really fun and easy intro app that offers a ton of different opportunities, and you can get pretty deep with it. Lastly, the last one of these apps, or the last, excuse me, two of these apps that I want to show off are the Is It Conductive and the Alarm. They're almost the same thing, but we use them in slightly different ways. Um, I like the Is It Conductive app, even with like the youngest kids. I always talk to teachers about how the Is It Conductive app is a great way for students to really get into science by testing what the outcome of something will be. So all this app does is you tell it what key you're using. By default, it's the space key. I'm going to switch it to like the up arrow because that's easier for me to press while I'm holding it. And then whenever you press that key, it makes the worst sound in the entire world. But it's a great example of what a circuit is and how a circuit works. What's happening on the screen is mirroring what's happening on the Makey Makey. I'm physically closing the circuit, and this is like that drawbridge or that switch that I was talking about. And when I do, a light comes on. And on the Makey Makey, a light comes on as well. So it's a really good mirror. And what we can do with this is you can have kids go around the classroom if they've never been introduced to the idea of conductivity before, and they can experiment to figure out what sorts of things are conductive or are not conductive. And I always encourage teachers to have the kids just like make two piles in the front of the room, things that triggered the is it conductive tester and things that did not. And then they can record that information and they have a list of things that work and a list of things that don't. And I can say, that's all it is to be a scientist. It's not all it is, but like that's what it is to be a scientist is you test something and then you record the data and then you're able to use that to make things happen in the world. And having those two data sets, what is conductive and what isn't, is a really cool starter thing that like kids as young as kindergarten can do. So this is a great app for kids getting started, figuring out what conductivity is, which is really going to help them along with the Makey Makey. The last one is the alarm. Doesn't have the same type of educational value, but it does the exact same thing. I'm going to switch this one to the up arrow again because that's easier for me. So this one just says whenever I touch it, whenever the circuit is closed, the alarm goes off. Also, not my favorite sound in the world. What's neat about this one, the difference between this and the Is It Conductive app is that you can say that it goes off whenever the circuit is open. So now this is only going to happen when I let go, which is equally horrible. But what that allows you to do is build like alarms or booby traps. I always think of the thing from Indiana Jones where the giant ball starts rolling. Whenever you lift up the statue, it's like you've triggered the thing, and now the alarm is going off. Um, and so this just gives them something to play with to think about different ways of interacting with those circuits. What happens when it's open versus what happens when it's closed. Like I said, these are really, really good beginner apps if you've got a group of students who've never used Makey Makey before, it gets them understanding it in a way that is fun really, really quickly. Further on down from that, we have a ton of apps that you can use with real world application in a lot of different classrooms. So really quickly, I'm going to run through these. The Buzzer app is great for it's a buzzer and it's great for a quiz game in the classroom. You can say the number of teams or players that you want to have. And then I keep hitting the wrong button there. And then what happens is whenever you press the space key, so let's say I ask a question, and as soon as I'm done asking the question, I press the space key, and now it's waiting for someone to buzz in. And so if I press the left arrow, the left person buzzes in. And so this is just a way to create a buzzer that could be used while studying for a test. So that means that this is something that could be used in a geography class or a science class or an English class. Anytime they have a test and they've got subject matter that they need to study for, you can have the kids build their own buzzers and play a game show game to study. And that's like way more fun than just doing flashcards. You can have them divide up into teams based on whatever the test is. So if you were doing a test about like the states, each team is a different state and they have to make a buzzer that in some way relates to that state. Or if they're doing a science test and it's about animals within a specific biome, like one group, is a type of an Arctic fox or a polar bear or a penguin, and they are buzzing in on those things. And that gives them more investment in it. It makes it more fun for them and more engaging. So this is a great one that you can actually practically use in pretty much any classroom. The other two that I really love that are similar to that are the Sampler app and the Interactive Poster app. What the Sampler does is it just assigns sounds to button presses. Right now, it's, I think, like a kind of a DJ type thing. Let me see. No, these are the twinkly ones. Let's see. Uh-oh, is my sound muted on here? Let's see if I can. There we go. So by default, we have preset sound collections, and you can assign those sounds to different button presses and build something that triggers them. And you can actually load your own sounds on it. An example of this really quickly that I did was for really young kids. I built a farm environment and I wired it up so that each of the animals is supposed to go in a specific location. So this dog goes on the dog house. And I made it so that whenever the dog is aluminum foil on the back, so he bridges that connection. Whenever the dog lands on the dog house, I assigned it to make a woof noise, and I assigned that to like the up arrow key. So you can do this with all sorts of like dioramas. The kids could build similar to this one here. They could do it with posters or with Legos. It's just an easy way to make it so that they can assign sounds to button presses outside of the music of the piano. And then taking that just one step further is the Interactive Poster app. The Interactive Poster app is the exact same thing, except you're not just assigning sounds to a button press, you're assigning images. So imagine here you've made a poster, and I've done it. Oh, here's my example of it. So I made a map of the town where I live, and I wanted to make it so that whenever you hold down on the earth wire right here, and then tap on any of these, it triggers a button press, and that button press would show you my favorite restaurant in my town, or the movie theater in my town, or the pool near my house, or my house itself. And what I could do then is I could make it so that when I pressed on one of these, let's say I pressed on the pizza place, I could say that's the up arrow, and I could wire my up arrow to the pizza place, and I could upload a picture of the pizza place by clicking the upload button right here on the image, and I could record a sound, and that could be me saying my favorite restaurant in town is Aviator Pizza, which is the one down the road from me. My favorite thing to get there is their pepperoni and basil, right? And I could upload a picture of that pepperoni and basil pizza and have that recording. And now, whenever someone taps on that on the poster, they've learned something about me. The example I always use for this is, again, you could use this in a social studies class, and kids could have pictures of all of the presidents on a poster, and you could put it out in the hall. And as other students came by, it's just like being at a museum with an interactive exhibit. They could tap on each president, and the students would have recorded George Washington as our first president. He fought in the Revolutionary War. His teeth weren't actually made of wood. Washington, Adams, Jefferson second. Yeah, I think. Adams, one of them. Anyway, is the second president. They did this, blah, 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 blah. And you could make a poster for that. You could make one for the water cycle, where they tap on each part of the water cycle and the students explain it and they show pictures on the screen. So it works just like the Sampler app, but allows them to add images as well. Those are, I'm going to close that tab. Those are, between the Buzzer app, the Audio Sampler, and the Interactive Poster, in my mind, the best generic, these can be used in any classroom app. I think all of you should definitely check out those apps if you haven't, as well as the resources, the lessons on our resource page for using them. And you can just open the resource page and search for Interactive Poster or Sampler or Buzzer, and it'll show you the lessons that are related to those. I'm going to pause right there. We're at about halfway. Are there any questions so far?
We don't have any questions in the chat. We had one earlier around if the slide deck will be sent out. So yes, we will send out the slide deck and a replay probably later this evening or at the latest tomorrow for you.
Yep. Excellent. Okay, so with that said, really quickly, I'll brush through what all of the other apps are. I encourage you to look at these, but the reason I stopped there is because these first two sections I tend to think of as the most useful for beginners, especially the intro apps for getting started, the ones that you can use in absolutely any classroom, and then everything after that is specialized, and they all have really great uses, but they're maybe not for everyone. You're probably not going to use our sheet music app in your science class. Maybe you are, that would be cool. If you do, tell us about it. But all of these get a little bit more specialized. The basically the make a sketch is like an etch a sketch, and you're making different buttons to draw the pictures. The counter is really good for taking a survey. You could say, press each of these things. Everyone come up and you get to press one of these things, and it would count, and you're basically like voting uh, for each of those things. The scoreboard is really good. We see that used a lot in STEM and the GEM. Kids can build like large scale interactive GEM games or relay races, those types of things where they're running back and forth and teams are trying to like score. Same with the timer app. These all have very, very different uses, and you might not use them in every class, but they are excellent tools. So I do encourage you to check them out. And if you say, well, what would I even use this for? Go to the resources page and search for that app, and you can figure out how we've used it in the past or ways that we've seen people use it. Um, but the ones that like I said, the ones I think everyone can use are those starter apps, and then these three right here. And that is everything that I want to talk about on the apps there. So I'll jump back into the presentation. All right. So we're talking about using Makey Makey in the classroom. Uh, there are a ton of different resources for doing that. And what is the goal of doing this? There are a couple of different things that you can get out of using Makey Makey in a classroom. One is specifically, some people in the chat I saw were STEM coaches or computer science teachers, those types of things. Makey Makey can be used really effectively in coding progressions in school. And the way that we think about it is that you can actually use the Makey Makey itself before you've started coding. If you have kids who are not ready to start with something like Scratch or MakeCode or any of the other block-based coding languages, you can actually get them interested in the sort of logic of computers and building electronics and making tools with computers well before they're old enough to start doing the actual coding itself. And the easiest way to do that is just with our plug and play apps. So if you have a group of second or third graders, you can say, build a musical instrument using this app. And then once they're ready to start learning Scratch coding or make code or something like that, you can say, cool, last year you learned how to build a computer tool for yourself. Now program that tool. Now take that instrument from last year or build a new instrument and write the code for it instead of using the pre-programmed app. And they'll go, oh yeah, this is easy. I'm just adding one thing on to this larger, series of concepts that I have. So you can go from no code at all computing, where they are programming logic with the Makey Makey on physical material like a poster board. And then the next year or the next semester, you can add in something like block-based coding, and they can stick with that for quite a while. Once they graduate out of the simpler block-based coding, you can move to more advanced stuff like what's possible with MakeCode. And from there, MakeCode has a really wonderful toggle where you can go from programming games in block-based code to pressing a button and seeing it in something like JavaScript. And that's a really great way to take the training wheels off for the older kids. Some of you said you were using it with 6th through 8th graders. If they start using MakeCode to build video games or to build apps, they can see what the actual written JavaScript code of that looks like. And then when they get into high school, now they're already familiar with this text-based coding, and they kind of understand how that connects to the same stuff that they've learned before. So starting with just physical computing by building something and then moving into coding and then moving into text-based coding, we have a really wonderful like stair-step scaffolded system that can be used with computer science and coding with kids that are very, very young. And so that's one of the ways that Makey Makey can be used in a classroom that like is cognitively valuable. There's an educational value to that. The other way is just outside of coding entirely. And that's the stuff that we were talking about when we were looking at those apps. And that is, how do I take another topic that I can't figure out how to connect to STEM? We're all supposed to be doing STEM learning. How do I connect STEM topics to that? And this is really, really useful with two types of kids. One, you've got the really, really STEM kids who aren't interested in music, or they're not interested in the arts, or they don't want to try as hard on their social studies projects. And you say, okay, cool, but what if you got to code an app or a piece of hardware that teaches people about the presidents, that teaches people music concepts, that teaches them about this art stuff? I know you're not super interested in the art stuff, so what if you got to do this other thing and bring that in, bring your interest into it? The Makey Makey is a great way to do that. And the reverse is also true. The other group of kids there are the ones who think that they are not STEM kids, that think they are not coders, that they are not engineers. I myself I thought of myself as an artsy kid when I was in school. My mom was a painter, and I thought of myself as an arts kid. I went to school for art. Um, I would have probably loved math if I'd had scratch coding and things like Makey Makey when I was a kid. If I got to build and engineer stuff that I thought was cool, and I got to bring my arts interest into that, I would have done that more of that. And so being able to use the Makey Makey as a hands-on way to get kids building and thinking differently and applying the stuff that they're interested in to new areas or getting them to try new things is a really, really powerful tool. And it gets them on the road to thinking about things in ways that they might not otherwise. And once they start exercising those muscles, they can apply them to other situations that maybe they never would have before. Okay, so with all of that said, some of you mentioned that you have already used Makey Makey in your class, but it has been a while. And I actually got really excited when you said that, because that means that I get to introduce you to some new stuff that maybe you haven't seen before. When the Makey Makey came out, it was just the Makey Makey classic, as we sort of think of it. It was I hit the button on the Makey Makey. It was the Makey Makey in a kit, and you unboxed that and sort of brought your creativity to it and used it in your library or used it as a one-off in your classroom. Teachers wanted to be able to use these in a full classroom, so we have the STEM pack. That is a set of 12 Makey Makeys, so that you can have your kids. If you've got a class of 24 kids, you can break them up where it's 2 kids per Makey Makey. One of them is doing the building, and the other one's doing the coding, and then the next time they come back to the class, they swap. This kit is great for classrooms because it comes with a few things that you don't get if you just buy 12 of the regular Makey Makey Classic. It comes with extra cables, extra long cables. It comes with extra wires to plug into the back of the Makey Makey. It comes with conductive pencils. I've got my conductive pencils somewhere around here. Make sure to bring some out so I can show you. And now I don't see where they are. Here they are. If you've never used our conductive pencils, these allow you to just draw on a surface, and whatever you draw is conductive and becomes a button. So I actually was at a library recently, and I had kids do what I'm going to do here. Let's see if I can turn on my document camera to show you this. Hold on, I'm going to stop sharing. All right. And now, Simone, you're the host. Let's see if this is even going to work. I'm going to switch to my document camera. Can you pin me to the screen, Simone? Is that something you can do?
I don't see that option.
Hmm. Well, am I the main? Is it showing me because of the fact that I'm talking?
Yes, and I gave you sharing privileges.
Perfect. Okay, thank you. So with the pencils here, I don't have a slide for this, and that's why I'm going to do like a live demo of this. What you can do is anything that you draw becomes conductive. So I'm going to draw off of the edge of my paper here. And so now I can clip an alligator clip to that and grab one of my alligator clips from my pile over here. Let's see if I can straighten this out a little. There we go. So I could clip onto that, and now that should connect to my Makey Makey. So if I connect that to my Makey Makey, we'll make that the space key. So now whenever I press that, yep, I'm testing it over here. I'll show you where it works. And you should be able to see if I can get my space key on the screen. Where is it? There we go. You can see that that light comes on. So anything that the kids draw, this is a great way to prototype circuits, can then become a button. I was at a library and I just needed to demo the Makey Makey really quickly. So I had every kid come over and do basically what I'm going to do here, which was write their name and just kind of connect those. So you can see there's my E, my L, and my I. And I just had every kid that came through write their name on a piece of paper exactly like this and test it, even really little kids, and they loved that. And let's make sure that that works. And so I can tap any of the letters on my name. And because they're all connected, oh, I'm typing in the chat as well. That's funny. Because they're all connected, they trigger the Makey Makey button. So those come in the classroom set as well. And I just wanted to make sure that I showed you what they are, because if you'd never seen them before, you'd be like, why do we need Makey Makey pencils? But they're really cool. I'm going to go back to sharing my screen.
Hey, Eli, we do have a question
Oh, perfect.
around number two pencils. So the question is, are number two pencils less conductive than our pencils that we have?
I love that you asked that. If I was going to plant someone in the audience to ask a question, that is what I would have had them ask. Great question. Are they less conductive? Yes, technically. So what's happening when you use these Makey Makey pencils is they are 6B artist pencils. And so they're softer. They're used in art to make darker lines, and the reason they're darker is because there's less binder material, so you're laying down more graphite, and so it makes a darker line. What it does for us is, because you're laying down more graphite and graphite is conductive, you've just got a better chance of the conductive graphite material like rubbing up against each other and creating a circuit. Um, a regular number two pencil will work if you lay down enough of a line, but it's not going to work as reliably and it's going to take longer. And I've worn out paper doing it. So these are better. You can just loot your art class at school and just steal all of their 6B pencils. I don't encourage you to do that. But it will work the same because this is just a 6B pencil. The advantage that you get with ours is just that when you buy an artist set of pencils, it's like a 2H, which is like a hard. There's like an F, a 2H, a 2B, a 4B, a 6B, stuff like that, and they all look exactly the same. And so you're going, which one is my special pencil that'll work really well with the Makey Makey? But if you happen to buy our classroom set, these are just easier to spot because they say Makey Makey on them and they're bright red. Um, but you can just use a 6B artist pencil as well. Great question. So these are the products that if you've not used Makey Makey in a while, you're probably most familiar with are these two right here. Uh, so I'm really excited to talk about the other stuff that we have. We have released a series of accessory products and booster kits that allow you to do the things that you were already doing with Makey Makey more easily, or they'll allow you to do more things. And so let's look at each of these individually. So the first one here is our backpack bundle. We started making what we call Makey Makey backpacks. And I did mention to someone who had said, oh, I have Makey Makey, but I haven't used them in years. And I said, there's some stuff that you can do with the new stuff that you can't do with the old. So if your Makey Makeys are crazy old, if they're old enough, they won't work with the backpacks. But what these are is they connect to the back of the Makey Makey, and I'm attaching one right now, and they make use of those pens on the back of the Makey Makey. So on the front, you've got up, down, left, right, space, and click. But on the back of the Makey Makey, like I said, you've got WASD, left click, right click, scroll. You've got all of that. And this allows you to tap into those more easily. So this makes it so it's easier to press WASD, F, and G, or to use the mouse buttons, or to use all of those. And they just attach to the back and make it faster and easier to do that. This is really good for new students or for students who want to do more advanced stuff. We also have our booster kits. These have different types of materials for building. It's what we use when we're building projects. The Craft and Code booster kit has conductive material, maybe some stuff that you wouldn't be using. It uses the same conductive tape that we use, which is a little bit higher quality than copper tape. And then it just has a bunch of cool conductive stuff like conductive thread, a ball bearing, kind of an arcade button, some conductive fabric, things that we use in projects, some of which are a little bit harder to find or to source. And then the Get Up and Go booster kit. This is our booster kit for if you want to build something away from the desk, away from the banana piano, especially STEM and the gem type stuff. Extra long cables, a wrist strap so you can ground yourself, extra long wire. Really good for building larger scale projects. Those are kind of the simpler things. Some of you are talking about working with older kids and wanting to find ways to take things further. And we released a product last year to do just that, and that is our Coda Key backpack. I'm attaching mine to my Makey Makey right now. The Coda Key backpack plugs into the back of the Makey Makey and allows you to connect it to a microbit microcontroller. And once we have the microbit attached to the Makey Makey, we can use it to press the buttons on our Makey Makey. So what we can do with that is use the sensors, like the sound sensor. What you see here is a game that we have on our website where construction card jumps whenever you press, I think it's usually the space key, it might be W. And we've just programmed it so that whenever you clap, the microbit hears that sound and uses it to press a key on the Makey Makey to make Carl jump. So you can play Flappy Bird style games by clapping your hands or by turning the lights on and off in the room, or you can play like Pong by tilting the controller left and right. All of the sensors in the microbit are suddenly available. And what's cool about this is it allows us to do more advanced coding. Kids can program the microbit to do different things and to respond in different ways and trigger the Makey Makey. And we can go really far with this. We actually did a workshop like this one, or a webinar like this one, last month about using this with AI, where students build their own rule set for an AI so that when they do specific gestures or motions, it triggers things on the computer. And that's a really cool way to integrate brand new sort of cutting edge technology into something as simple as the Makey Makey and allow you to, again, take that scaffold even higher up and say, now that you know how to code, let's code something really advanced and let's apply AI to it. So you can go really far with this. My favorite thing that we built with it is a power glove where you wear it on your wrist and you tilt and control and play games with it because I loved the Nintendo Power Glove when I was a kid because I was born in the 80s. The other sort of product type things that are useful for you to know about are our Makey Makey 101 course. If it's been a while since you've done anything with Makey Makey, this is an excellent refresher for you. We think of this as like the primer for anyone who's getting started with Makey Makey, and there's a good chance that it has some stuff in there that you haven't seen or heard about yet. So, and that's free. So I encourage you to check that out on our website. I've got the address there. It's courses.makeymakey.com/101. And like I said, we'll be sharing out a link to this, so you'll have that there. And this is actually the prerequisite for our certified educator course. This is a workshop that we do online every month or couple of months. And this is everything that we think a person needs to know to be a certified educator to use Makey Makey in the classroom. This is not what you have to do to teach Makey Makey in the classroom, but it's our thoughts on implementing best practices. It's not going to teach you to use Makey Makey. That's what the 101 course is for, and for things like this that we're doing here. What it's going to do is it's going to teach you how to think about using Makey Makey in your specific classroom setting. So pedagogical stuff and best practices and ways to engage the students with the content that you're wanting them to learn and how Makey Makey can strengthen that. So this is a really excellent way to take things further if you're interested in doing that. That is sort of everything in the family of Makey Makey right now. The thing that I would encourage all of you to do is to check out the stuff that's immediately freely available to you. Check out the new apps, check out those lesson plans, find out what stuff there is that you haven't tried yet. And if you have questions about any of that, feel free to reach out to us. And then from there, if you've not used these new things, some of you, like I said, are middle school teachers and are looking for ways to take things further. We have figured out some really, really cool stuff to do with the new products, and we're always excited to see our educator friends figuring stuff out to do with them as well. So definitely, like, if you're interested in those, reach out to us, and we can get you started on that path. Once again, the promo code, if you want to upgrade or expand your kits, is get started, and that's 15% off of both of those. I am going to pause for a breath, and if there are any, I know I just ran through a bunch of products that maybe you guys haven't seen, so if you have any questions about any of those, please let me know now.
Eli, we do have a question around the conductive pencils because they are a little bit softer. They're wondering if they can be sharpened in a regular sharpener.
Yep, yeah, they can, and actually, if I go back to that uh, booster kit, we even include a sharpener in there, and it's just a standard one. They are exactly like I said, exactly like the artist pencils that you might find in your in your art class. Um, the one thing about them is if you've ever used those artist pencils, because of the fact that they are softer, they smudge. So any project your kids are doing with these, just know that they are maybe not going to look as pretty after a few days. You collect a bunch of papers where the kids have drawn with these, and you stack them together. Those pictures smudge, and sometimes you even have to go back over them to make those connections again. That's a good question. And you can get those in the booster kit. If you already have Makey Makeys and you're like, well, I've already got a classroom kit, you can buy those in the booster kit, but you can also just buy a set of those pencils from us, or like I said, 6B artist pencils work.
Perfect. We also have another question around what kind of tape is in the craft and code pack that you're showing right now.
Another awesome question. Let me grab mine. So this is our conductive tape that we use. It's like a conductive fabric tape. It is not like copper tape. So if you get on Amazon and buy a cheap roll of copper tape, I actually love those. I'm not saying cheap in a derogatory fashion. They are inexpensive. Um, they have a few features that are both advantageous and disadvantageous. One is you can just tear them with your hands because it's just a really thin sheet of metal with adhesive on it, and you don't need scissors. Um, that is super handy. The problem with it is it's a thin sheet of metal, and if you tear it with your hands, it's like getting the world's worst paper cut sometimes. The advantage to this tape is that it is never going to cut you in that way, but the disadvantage is you have to use scissors to cut it. It is a stronger tape. That brings me to the next point. If you use copper tape in your project, because of the fact that it is thinner and flimsier, sometimes it tears off. This is way more durable. It's better for projects that you want to have last a long time. It's much, much better if you're going to be doing posters and things that kids are going to be interacting with a lot. And the last thing about them is that if you buy copper tape off of Amazon, it's kind of a roll of the dice as to whether or not the adhesive that is making it stick to your cardboard is conductive or not. So I might take one sheet of copper tape and lay it down and put another sheet on top of it and think that I have a nice circuit in the shape of an L. And as it turns out, no electricity is going to pass through those two because in between the conductive layer is a layer of something, oops, that is blocking conductivity. And so it won't work. This tape, you can actually lay pieces on top of each other and be assured that the electricity is going to move through it and that you're going to be able to do a button press with it. So advantages and disadvantages to both. We tend to want something that is stronger, that is going to last longer, and that is going to allow us to build more complex circuits. I think you can even see them on the back of my project here. You can see I've taped these pieces together. This would not work with copper tape. And so that is what we put in here. And it's a little bit harder to find, which is part of the reason we package it with our stuff as well. That way you have easy access to it. Great question.
All right, we've got a couple more on the same note. Wondering if they can get the conductive fabric tape without buying the Craft and Code pack.
Yes, you can. What a funny time to ask that question. We do sell 3 packs of rolls of that tape. It's just a set of 3 of these on our website. And I think we happen to be out of stock of them right now. Is that correct, Simone and Tara? I think so. Um, they are going to be coming back into stock next week. So you can buy just these by themselves from us, but we are having to send some to our warehouse right now. So you can't buy them today.
All right, thank you for that. Another question, what do the different backpacks do?
Excellent. I moved through those kind of quickly. So the 3 backpacks, they all come in a set together, uh, and they each tap into those back pins on the Makey Makey. You can use these without the backpacks. So if you have a Makey Makey, they'll already access WASD, FG, and then the scrolling up, scrolling down, scrolling left, scrolling right, left click, and right click of the mouse. You can already use them. But you have to plug wires into them, jumper wires. So instead of using your alligator clips, you have to have a thin wire that plugs in there. Those can sometimes come out. If you've got especially kids running around a classroom, those might get yanked out. If you have little kids, the manual dexterity is not great. It's hard to put them in. Um, we have wires in our kit, but it's harder for kids to keep track of which one of these is what. Like there's no visual cue in the way that you know that this is up. W and A look the exact same on here. So that's the disadvantage of using these as they are on the Makey Makey. And so what each of these do is they break out one set of those back pins. So the Player 2 backpack is W, A, S, D, F, and G, and it looks just like the front of the Makey Makey, where W is up, A is left, S is down, and D is right. F is one of the action buttons, and G is the other one. So it looks like a second Makey Makey, which is why we call it our Player 2 backpack. Um, and it's just a way to really easily make 2-player games. The Makey Mouse is the moving the it's scrolling up, scrolling down, scrolling left, scrolling right, left click and right click of the mouse. Sometimes you might build an app or use an app that requires mouse clicks. In programming in Scratch, you can do a lot of stuff with the mouse, and so this allows you to really clearly and really easily access those. Let me move back to the picture of it. And so it looks, again, pretty similar to the front of the Makey Makey, and it makes it way more clear how to use those. And you can use the alligator clips instead of wires. So that's easier. And then the last one is the Makey Max. and it is both of those. It works the exact same as the back of the Makey Makey. You have access to up or W A S D F G, and then the mouse scrolling up, mouse scrolling down, mouse scrolling left, mouse scrolling right, left mouse click, and right mouse click. It's these two things put together. It is for if you need a ton of button clicks. So if you wanted to build a full scale piano and you didn't want to use tiny little wires to do it, you want to use alligator clips. Or if you have a kid, when I was a kid and when I taught kids, it's always fun. You learn how to do a thing, you go, but how do I do the most of that thing? Like, oh, I can run fast. How do I run the fastest? I can be loud. How do I be the loudest? I can build a button. How do I build the most buttons? I want to build a game with as many different buttons as possible. This is the way to do that. It combines all of them together really, really easily. And so that is what that is for. Great question. I moved kind of quickly through that, so I'm glad you asked. Anything else?
It looks like we got everything. Do you have
Awesome.
a comment here? Interested in the wrist attachment? If we want to talk about
Yeah, so
that.
in the get up and go, it's actually a really simple thing. So in the get up and go booster kit, this is just a Velcro strip with like a little watch band type thing. And so I'm gonna put that on my wrist so you can see it. It's basically just a watch band, but with no watch. And what this is for is, let's say you're playing a game where you have to run around a room and like slap different buttons that have been attached to the floor or the wall of the gym. Or you're playing DDR or something like that, and you're supposed to step on the up, down, left, and right pads on the floor. You have to stay grounded. You have to be connected to the Makey Makey to do that. And so in the past, maybe you would just take one of our wires and connect it to Earth and then hold that in your hand. Well, you might drop it. I've seen a lot of kids clip it onto necklaces or earrings. I saw one kid when he was prototyping something just put the alligator clip in his mouth, which I didn't love. The wrist strap is just an elastic strap, and it just makes for a really easy way to clip that onto you so that you're always grounded. So you can just get that as tight as you need to. I'm going to tighten mine up because it's a little loose. And then tuck your earth wire, your earth alligator clip into that. And now whenever I touch a conductive thing that's connected to the Makey Makey, I don't have to like hold on to the wire. I don't have to worry about accidentally breaking that connection. So it's just really handy when you're doing big projects where you're running around a lot. Not something that you can't sort of like build on your own, but a lot of times it's easy to just have kits where you can say, I know we're going to be doing something big. I'm going to grab that kit and I know it's got the stuff that we need. Any other questions?
We've got one question. How do you get the large Makey Makey behind you?
Great question. Yeah, I'm gonna stop sharing so that I can actually see what I'm saying as well. And I'll bring that down. I cannot take credit for this. My good friend Colleen, who used to write a bunch of our content, she lives here in Austin as well, and she built this, and she built it based on a tutorial that someone else made on Instructables. This is a poster board, a foam core poster board. You can have these printed at places like Office Max or FedEx. I got one from FedEx, but I used Colleen's instead of mine because I accidentally ordered a size larger than hers. And so mine is like, it's like twice as big. But it's just a poster board with foil on it. And we have this image on our website, so you can give this to FedEx and have them print it for you. And then on the back, there is a Makey Makey wired up to each of those points. So she literally built a Makey Makey and then hooked a Makey Makey up to it and wired it up. And we have a tutorial for that on our website. I think if you search on our website for giant Makey Makey, let's see if I can find it right now really quickly. I'll search, hold on. Giant Makey Makey, and I'll share my screen as soon as I've got that. Yeah, okay, cool. Let me share my screen here. I love that question too, because I grabbed that just at the last minute. So I just clicked on the search icon here at the top of our website, makeymakey.com, and I typed in giant Makey Makey, and I believe this is the lesson for building it. Yep, look at that. So this is Colleen's lesson on how to build the giant Makey Makey. And it's literally just get a large version of it printed on poster board, make your buttons, and wire it up. And I encourage everyone to do this. This is such a fun thing to have if you have a makerspace at your school. It's really easy to carry this around. It's no more difficult to carry around than a regular Makey Makey, except for the size. It's like super lightweight, and you plug it in the exact same way that you would a normal one, and it works the exact same. I take this around to events and use it as a demo when I'm at a booth or a table or something. So I encourage you to do those as well. Yeah, great question.
Lori says we should really sell these.
The shipping on them would be terrible. Yeah, and someone I would end up being the person that has to make them. The other thing that we need to do before we leave, and I can't believe I forgot about this, but we are going to do a giveaway. Simone, have you pulled a name for our giveaway today?
I did. I did our random number generator. Let me double check that this person is still here because you got to be live to win. Oh, they are. Tammy Holtz, you are the winner.
Yay, way to go, Tammy. If you could put your email address here in the chat for us, we will reach out to you to get shipping information, and you are going to get I believe it's is it the Makey Makey, the booster kits? Simone, don't let me say the wrong stuff.
That's right. And backpack.
In the backpacks, yeah. So like a
Yep.
whole perfect little kit to get started with. So that's awesome. So yeah, if you could drop your email in the chat for us, we can arrange to have that sent to you. And if anyone had any questions about any of the stuff that we have covered today, I'm going to pull up the email address. You can reach out to us at education@joylabs.com with any questions that you have from today's workshop or today's webinar. We will be sending out a copy of this recording, and we'll make sure that the slides are available to you as well. But if you have any other questions, do feel free to reach out to us. And otherwise, thank you all for being here so much. I always love getting to do this, so I was really glad to get to hang out with you today. Say thanks to everyone in the chat. I see you're all talking in there. Thank you as well. And with that said, I'm going to stop the recording. Oh, wait, Simone, I think you have to stop the recording, don't you?
Yes, we don't have Tammy's email yet. Tammy, if you will place that in the chat, I think you can send it directly to me too in the chat. Or we can, oh, there it is. We got it now. Let me copy it. Fantastic. All right. Thank you, everyone.
And with that said, I'm going to close us out and hope